want to ask you, why are you copying my mustache this morning?
Because you look handsome. David Weck said it himself. He said, God smiled when he made you. So I was like, well, I'm just going to copy Nsima. Wait till you see my skin color coming up.
Oh,
I'm gonna be working on that shit. It's going to take me a while.
Dude, jacked and tanner than
You're
ever.
very tan. Wouldn't take you very long. You too. You are a very brown man.
Dude, I'm
brown.
I'm the blackest ginger. Or the gingerest brown person. I don't
Gingerist.
What is the deal with being a ginger? Because your hair looks pretty blonde, but your hair can be blonde and reddish and brownish, right?
Well, it's the same genotype. It's the same genes that do blonde hair and do red hair, as far as I understand. And then when the beard comes in, it gets really red, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, you're ginger," and I'm like, "Since when?"
For all the red-headed individuals in our audience, I'm sorry for the insensitivity of these two gentlemen. I know.
Oh no, I can say ginger.
That. Oh yeah, you can.
Yeah, it's the same genes. You know, I'm allowed to.
So get mad at him.
Like Brock Lesnar, I remember like grew out like his beard and stuff. It's just like crazy. It was like so red, and then it turned blonde, and he just has those crazy blue eyes. I was like, he looks insane.
Well, so here's a guess.
Smash everybody.
Curious.
Where you,
Oh, you want to see it?
Yeah.
Let me pull it up. My beard, when it grows long, it starts
Turns
to
red?
turn red. Yeah.
Really?
I don't know where that came from, but yeah.
dude, it came from a bunch of Vikings rolling into your great grandmother's village and having their way or something. I mean, do with that
They
what
really
you
did
will.
that shit.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
Yeah. They really did that shit.
So here's a guess while he's pulling that up. You get your mitochondria from your mother. So you don't get, I think you get your hematocrit from your mother. You get a lot of blood work from your mother. So like a lot of your aerobic talent is directly from your mother. You get none of it from your father. So like there's that idea that your mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell.
Yeah, that's an intimidating looking man right there.
Yeah, that's Viking-y right there.
Looks ready to defend this country. That's right.
Sure does.
Yeah, so there's a idea. I mean, I think people buy into it. I certainly do. That when we were like single cell organisms are really small, at some point we kind of like we got parasitized basically, or we brought them in mitochondria as a separate thing. Like they were not your original genome. So the genes for your mitochondria kind of do their own thing and just happen to live in your cells in exchange for, turning glucose into energy, for example, because they don't need the ATP, you need the ATP, and they need the glucose. So you have this kind of like symbiosis where your mitochondria are a different lineage than your mother or your father. They're totally separate. And so I'm going to bring it back to the ginger beard and like why you see people like me, at least in America, or, me casting a net and being like, hey, anybody that wants to just come train at my house for free. We get a lot of people that are on like the like kind of redheady-ish spectrum. And there's two things in here. One is like the fair lady, right? Like lighter skinned, lighter complexion women are seen as like more attractive, right?
Yeah.
And tall, dark, and handsome, right? And it's like, I mean, I'm all the right traits. I'm just like for a woman, right? It's like I'm just a little too pretty here. Like I'd be so pretty if I could just be a woman.
Oh man.
But yeah, so like I think the reason that you see that is because
you can be a woman.
You can if you really wanted it.
I like being a man.
Okay.
I have a lot of people that are like, you're pretty, you should go win that non-binary money. And I'm like, yeah, but the karma, man. Like I love being a man. I'd be like impotent or something within 6 hours. Like my male parts wouldn't work or something. I don't know. It's just not for me. It's for the people that want it. I'm glad it's there. But
that non-binary money, man.
They're like, you live on nothing, man. I bet you could go win that $12,000. They only ran like $235. You could live on that for 2 years. And I'm like, yeah, you're right.
But don't women tend to be like they handle high endurance stuff better, like 50, 100 milers. Like they tend to, I mean, I don't know if their times are actually pacing men's, but they're very good at it.
I've heard the theoretical line being like 200K, so like 120 some miles. That's probably
when women's
checks out.
times could surpass men's times?
Yeah, there's something to there. It's always hard to know if women are just catching up because they're getting more opportunities, or if they're catching up because ultimately they're I don't know. I think it's just opportunities placed before them. But certainly when you're dealing with like sleep deprivation and logistics and all these things, these are very egalitarian things. Like it's like, and women do probably handle sleep deprivation and like, 48 hours of stress. No way. I mean, I'm a pansy. Like I like getting it done quick, like a Band-Aid, 6-7 hours in time for brunch. Right. But yeah, bring it back to mitochondria. So like this means that if you had your haplotype, which is your mitochondrial DNA. That's your mitochondrial lineage. The powerhouse of the cell is from your
Are these
mother.
all things you've had tested and stuff like that before?
Yeah. So like I'm H haplotype. That's associated with the highest performance in white people that we've measured. So it's like when you start dealing with like the Kalenjin tribe in Northeast Africa, I don't actually know what their haplotype is, but I would imagine it's a different lineage entirely.
What did you get to test this? Because I know 23andMe
They have
mentioned certain things with this. Yeah. So I'm looking up right now.
If you go into your 23andMe and look up your haplotype, that'll get you your maternal lineage through your mitochondria. And so my guess is because most people are getting their aerobic talent from their mothers, and beauty standards are the way they are for men and women.
Yeah.
If you see somebody that's slightly gingery, it's probably because their mother is slightly gingery. That's going out on a limb a little bit, not their father being slightly gingery. And you can say, that's probably why this person is talented. They got mitochondria from that cool H haplotype that also happens to have a bit of red hair in it.
What about
That's
your
just a
muscle?
guess.
What about your muscle fiber types? Have you ever had those checked out?
Yeah, I had it. I was a participant in that FASTER study. That same one that
I'm not aware of it.
yeah, it's the fat adaptation, substrate utilization in trained elite runners. And it was Volek way back in the day. Before Art and Science of Performance, I think, came out.
How old are you?
I'm 30.
Okay.
I was just a very, very early
You were
adopter.
in this.
Like I
Wow.
started playing with like high fat, low carb stuff in 2009, 2010. And
Damn.
yeah, I'm just
You
I
were
was
an early adopter, dude.
What's the verdict?
the
Does
verdict is
low-
that we were monsters. I
Does
mean,
low carb work pretty good for endurance?
yeah, what we found is they wanted to replicate or they wanted to redo the study with the same participants and gather more data, and they couldn't because a lot of the high carbers had gone to low carb after they saw the data. So endurance athletes, they like data, like they're nerds, and you have a lot of time to think like maybe I screwed this up. And what we saw is there was zero overlap between the high fat group and the high carb group in peak fat oxidation. And so what that says to me is even the freaks, and everybody's doing fasted workouts, everybody's doing any number of things, everyone's doing 6-hour days or whatever in the mountains. And so to have the freaks in the high carb group still not able to meet the non-responders, air quotes, non-responders in the high fat group for fat oxidation tells you that this diet is trumping talent or training or any number of interventions. And it was pretty cool. I mean, it's been a lot of fun to have that data since, whenever that was done, 2012, 2013, whatever it was. And so it's been really cool to be like, oh yeah, I'm one of those blips, because it's one of the things that a lot of people reference. It changed the tide of, well, fat's only good if you're going real slow or you can't do this. A guy like me, I can run a mile on like 80 calories or 85 calories as far as like measured output. Whereas I think the standard rule of thumb is like 100 or 115. A bigger guy like yourself, I don't know if you know how many calories it takes you to run a mile. It's probably
Not sure.
It's probably
Probably
like
a couple
200.
thousand.
It's yeah. I mean,
Feels like it.
yeah. So like somewhere around 200-ish or whatever, and then to see that I can burn, a gram and a half or a gram and a third of fat per minute. That's 1.3 grams per minute. That's 12 plus calories ish. Just from fat.
Yeah,
a
I
minute.
posted some stuff about like what I ate going into like a run, and for me, it's a long run. I know for you, long run means something different, but it's like my first time running like 10 miles or 12 miles or something like that, and I talked about kind of what I ate the night before, and I was thinking about it like a little bit days in advance because I didn't want to necessarily eat a bunch of food before I ran, right? So I wanted to have the fuel in my body, and I talked about how I just upped my fat a little bit. I ate something called a keto brick, which has quite a bit of fat in it. And people were like, the fat's not going to do it. It's not going to, you need the carbs. And
Yeah.
it was just so interesting, like all the people kind of trying to chime in. And I was like, I think, I'm pretty sure the way that it works is the carbs are a little bit more of a fast acting thing and the fat's a little slower. That's why I ate the fat the night before. And then also you have your own body fat to go off of.
Yeah, an endless amount of body fat. Like even at 5%, I probably I'm fairly positive I dip below 5% when I'm really competition ready. But even that, it's like if we call that 2% of 130 pounds, that's still a lot of calories. 3,500 calories a pound. When it takes me less than, that's talking about a 100-miler with 0 calories, which has now been done at least 2 or 3 times, and that all checks out. thermodynamics wise. But the other thing with something like certain fats, I tend to think that if you're burning it from endogenous fat, then you don't need to worry about fueling with fat unless it's like a little, like a biohacky kind of like nootropic effect or something like that. So something like a keto brick. I mean, I've had the best performances of my life eating a brick a day. I was doing those chocolate malt ones until they were horrible. I mean, I did whatever it was, like 90 in so many days. And
you'd eat a whole brick a day. By the way, those are like 1,000 calories.
They're 1,000 calories.
And it's primarily stearic acid.
That's what I was getting at.
For whatever that's worth. Do you know much about it? I don't know a ton about stearic
90
acid.
90 grams of fat.
It's a different type of fat.
Yeah, it's directly mitochondrial stimulating. I don't really know the mechanism behind that, but it is mitochondrial stimulating, and it's very hard to get that in any other food. I mean, it's like whatever it is, 50+% stearic acid, where the next closest thing is like, I don't even know, but it's substantially less. And so having something in there, I wonder if that's not part of the magic.
Could be.
Let me ask you this. So you did that study in 2009. What was your diet prior? Like, how are you handling your nutrition and for these long runs? And through now 11 years, what have you come to as being like the optimal type of way to eat for these? I'm guessing you're still doing 50+ mile races and runs.
Yeah, I'm trying to get fast right now, which is kind of ironic that I think I'm slower than ever trying to get fast because I've been broken. It's just like, it's hard getting fast. My body likes going forever and ever and ever. What was that study, Andrew? Did you see that on there? Was it 2013? That's where I started playing with low carb, was like 2009, 2010.
Okay.
The one that I pulled up said it was from, I think, 2016, but it could be.
Maybe that was published date.
Right,
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah, I mean, I had first just said, okay, well, I can at least do as much fat as I want. And then that kind of just squeezed out carb calories. Whereas before I was very conventional runner. As a teenager, it was like just carbs are everything, carbs all the time. And I had the experience before I was even 18 or 19 of I'm going to eat, some like skim milk and cereal an hour before I go for this run. So I'm like topped off and like glycogen and everything. And I had the experience of an hour later, I'm supposed to be taking off for this run. And instead I'm eating again because I'm starving. And it's like my headspace didn't feel great, but part of that's just being like a young kid, right? That's the crux of life, being a teenager, I think. And yeah, so just playing with that and thinking there's gotta be something better, being kind of a contrarian, and having an instructor through vocational school being like, for nutritional counseling, being like, man, you endurance athletes are dumb. Like, this whole high carb thing is just idiotic. I'm like, tell me more,
Yeah.
He's like, I'm intrigued. And so started playing with that. I don't think I have it figured out, but I do think that every athlete should start like postseason, potentially preseason, with a nice base of like ketosis, of fat adaptation, to get that metabolic flexibility. And then depending on the needs of your sport, you do have to practice fueling with carbs, both GI wise and like day in, day out. If you're constantly training, it was one of the things in the faster study that didn't really get enough, lip service to it, was we were hitting VO2 max and we still weren't hitting 100% energy from carbs, even at VO2 max. So even at where you're like, you want to fall off the back of the treadmill, your body is still, it's like reluctant to burn those carbs. That's a decrease in performance for sure. Now, if you're doing a 200-mile race or, even a 100-mile race, it probably doesn't matter. Who cares what your 15-minute or 10-minute or 5-minute top end is? It doesn't matter. If you can burn more fat, then you should. So I think it's kind of a tightrope walk between how much carb, are you going to have to use on race day versus, training for the marathon, right? Like right now, I'm eyeing that Olympic trial standard in the marathon. And so that's going to involve running 5:15 a mile for 26.2 miles. So that's motoring. I mean, if you go to your local gym and put the treadmill at 12 miles an hour, that's about what you're looking at. And that's fast. Like it's objectively fast.
Yeah.
Which is cool because like I didn't run D1 or anything, so I don't have a background running fast. So I think I'm in a really cool spot where I've built this aerobic base and I've built the metabolic base from years and years of doing like the ultra world and fat adapting, that I can bring these carbs back in and be sitting at 200 grams a day, still be torching a lot of fat just for health and wellness and recovery, that sort of thing. And so I don't have to fuel on long runs because then it's just easier to not carry things and manage logistics. But I can bring all these in and just kind of rage. And the cool part about not having a background in speed is that it feels fast for me. Whereas a lot of these guys that I'm competing with, like they've gone 3:55 in the mile, or like one of my acquaintances back in Durango, I've trained with quite a few times. He's like 13:0 something in the 5K. So it's like running 5:15s or 5:25s. I'm like, this is great, man. We're hauling, man. Look at us. We're young and fast. Let's rage.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is tempo effort. Even if at the end I can jog out of it and he's hands on his knees, it's like it doesn't feel fast subjectively to him.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of like, that's a really cool angle that I have. That's a cool, card to play with right now.
When you say it feels fast, but does it feel difficult for you?
Yes and no. I think it's more of like a coordination thing. I think it feels more like doing double unders, right? Than it does, or maybe I just suck at double unders. But it's like I think it feels more like, you know what I mean? It's more of like a coordination, like central nervous system thing of like keeping it all coordinated and snappy and sharp and relaxed. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like my system could put out that wattage for the 2 hours required, but my just like coordination, I mean, you know how it is. And yeah.
I don't know how it is. But I get what you're saying.
I think you of all people know how it is. When you're doing something that you're efficient at, it takes a lot less mental effort. When you're
outside
doing
of running.
New. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Power Project family, your normal shoes are making you weak. This is why we partner with Vivo Barefoot Shoes, because they have a wide toe box, they're flat, and they're flexible. So with every single step you're taking, if you're taking a 10-minute walk outside, or when you're working out in the gym, your feet are able to do what they're supposed to do in this shoe. They have tons of options for hiking, running, training in the gym, chilling and relaxing, casual shoes for if you're out on a date. You need to check them out. And Andrew, how can they get it?
Yes, that's over at vivobarefoot.com/powerproject, and you guys will receive 15% off your order automatically. Again, vivobarefoot.com/powerproject. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
Okay.
I think a lot of these runs, especially like 100-mile runs and things like that. I mean, maybe there was some sick bastards out there that had the idea of like these are going to be like races, like we're going to race 100 miles. But for the most part, people are probably just like, this is just kind of a cool test to see if someone can run 50 miles. And now we're in a spot where almost anybody that signs up, even just for like a marathon, they're thinking about their time. They're not thinking about like finishing. And then people are wanting to run 7-minute miles and 6-minute miles and 5-minute miles and so on. And so now we're in a space where, people are really pushing the envelope. We're seeing the times the records getting broken quite frequently. And now there's a sub 2-hour marathon. It's an unofficial time, I guess, but it's just interesting. I don't know how well designed the human body is for, obviously we can run for a long time.
Yep.
But to sprint for a really long time is an interesting thing to try to figure out.
Yeah, definitely. I think my concern with that is you're starting to see this move. Super shoes are one thing, right? Like I think if you did everything barefoot, you'd run a lot slower, but you would last a lot longer. I mean, I think mechanically you can only run so hard when you're bare feet on bare ground, right? And I think that would save you a lot of pressure, whereas using
act as a governor maybe a little bit.
Yeah. And I think maybe it's comparable to using proper gear, lifting weights, and let me know how that strikes you. But it's like it's mechanical doping, right? I mean that really is what it is. And whenever you're playing with something like that, you have to realize that there are side effects of doing these things. And so I think you saw a lot of people get injured when they started just throwing on the super shoes and doing all their training in it, just because it's less abuse to your body, or you're training a little faster every day. And so I have my concerns about that with some of these faster times.
Have you had any of those types of do you use super shoes first, and have you had any of those type of experiences for yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I've been more injured than ever since like the super shoe era started. But I had one race where I was the first person across the finish line in like 10th place or something. And, prize money was 5 deep or whatever it was. And it was not a super big separation. And I was the first person that wasn't in super shoes. And I was like, all right, you have to put an asterisk next to these things. Like this is the times that we're in. And, if they are going to double your likelihood of getting injured, it doesn't matter. And I think that's what you're seeing with with carb consumption too, where you're seeing like 400 calories an hour or 500 calories an hour being consumed. And you see the glucose data on some of these guys, and they're doing, like there's a guy in the OCR world that I think he's the one that posted his data. Somebody posted their data, and they were doing a 10K, and like they took a Morton gel, like one of the hydrogels. They took that in the middle of the 10K. And you're like, what are you, diabetic? Like what are you doing here? But it almost is like, it's like glucose doping. You know, your supraphysiological levels of glucose, of all things. And now that we have, you know, we've figured it out on how to really cram more of it into your system, we're kind of entering this era now where like,
got to be talented to be able to eat one of those while you're running that fast too.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I was
it helps.
just thinking about like a 5K, like he must have been flying and he's trying to like squeeze down this packet. That would have
I think it helps having obstacles, right?
Yeah.
Like throw it in at the end of an obstacle or at the beginning of an obstacle, because
Yeah.
then you can kind of like let the heart rate recover. But you're seeing these guys that are they're rolling around with 200 plus 250 glucose levels, which your body doesn't like being that high, right? Like your central nervous system really doesn't like that. I think that's why you had like eye issues, right? It's like your central nervous system's really, it doesn't like elevated glucose levels. So if a guy like me is cruising around at like nice, healthy longevity glucose levels and fueling just the minimum for the exercise, and I'm getting trashed by guys that are like crushing 400 calories an hour, that's a tough spot to find yourself in, right? You're like, well, how bad do I really want to win? Like, is this a science project to
should
me?
I do what they're doing?
Yeah, exactly. And it really is. It's the same question with like any kind of performance enhancing intervention of any kind, where it's like, how much of my mechanical stability do I want to potentially trade for 4 minutes off my marathon time? You know,
Let me
where I
ask you,
am. Yeah.
because I think some people don't know what are some races that you've done recently? Like what are some of like mileages and races that you've done,
And
so
some
people
times
can
and stuff.
understand? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people know me from the JFK 50 miler, and I have a supreme love affair with that race. I've started it 6 times. So it's like, you know, you finish one year, you pretty much immediately start training for the next year. I mean, there's other races in between, obviously, but I have such a thing for that race. It's just, it's like theatrical, right? You start off and you're on the Appalachian Trail, and it's rugged. I mean, it's an earnest trail race. But at mile 16, you're off of that trail and you don't touch trail again for the rest of the race. And so you have to have chops to be able to get, you know, 2,000 feet of gain or whatever it is, 1,800 feet of gain over the first, you know, half marathon of the first 16 miles.
Yeah.
And you might want trail shoes, maybe you don't. You know, it's one more thing that in the super shoe era, now everyone's changing shoes because it's worth it, or they're just struggling through to avoid changing shoes and losing the time. And then it's like, I mean, you talk about injury rates when you're in a carbon fiber shoe on rugged Appalachian Trail.
Yeah.
But then you get onto the towpath in the middle, and it's a just over a marathon, 26 point something miles, and it's pancake flat gravel. And then you turn off of that and you don't see gravel again. You're pavement rolling through this beautiful Americana kind of farmland for the last 8 miles. So it's a 50 miler. I think a lot of people know me from that, just because I was second to Jim Walmsley's ultramarathon performance of the year.
Wow.
The first year I did it, and I was so sick. I mean, I was the sickest that I've ever been outside of a bed. I mean, I could like barely stand on the start line.
When you finished it, or when you started it.
Before, yeah. I mean, the day before, I just sat in bed, but I was. I mean, to this day, it was one of the best like peaks I've ever had. Where, you know, if you get everything just right, you get the right last 20 days or so before the race day, you're just limitless.
Was
right?
it maybe a little helpful that you were sick? Did it limit some training?
I don't think it was that it was helpful physically. I think it was helpful mentally, because I said, okay, you know, it's a day long retreat. I had gotten really into mindfulness going into that, and I had spent a lot of hours on the cushion, just formal meditation stuff. And I said, this is a day-long retreat. You know, I'm going to harvest any information that I can from this for myself and for anybody else. And there were a few things that came up in my head, and this was quite a few years ago now. And one of them was like, you know, I'm just like dedicating the merit of this. Like I'm going to learn something out here so that anybody else that doesn't want to run 50 miles, sick as shit, never has to run 50 miles. It's like I was dedicating the merit, like the value of the lessons that I was learning on the day as I was going. And, you know, I a lot of people know me with this, like, these like prayer hands at finish lines and that sort of thing. And I think I picked that up that year at JFK, where every mile marker on the canal, most people get crushed by the canal because you start and you're only 50 miles, or you're only 16 miles in, and you get off and you're 42 miles in. But in between is a whole lot of miles.
This looks terrible.
People are moving like that the entire time. Jesus Christ.
Wait, are people moving at that speed through this race?
Yeah, I mean, you're dealing with like, if you want a podium, if you want to be in contention to do well, you need to be under 6 hours. So that's moving.
And you said you got second in this race.
Yeah, I was second. I was second to Jim the year I did it, and he went on to be Ultra Runner of the Year for like the next 4 years after that. And this was his big performance of the year, and it's a pretty monstrous thing. Yeah, the guy that won whatever that was 2 years ago, it's pretty cool. We were talking at the finish line. I'm like, man, my ankles just don't handle this. Like I just roll ankles. And he goes, check this out. And the medial side of his feet he has 2 bones in there, I forget which ones, that are fused together, and they've been like that since birth. So he literally cannot invert his ankle.
Jesus.
That's talent. It's like, that's like, what a mad world where something like that matters.
You know, I think it's interesting watching some of these athletes run downhill and traverse the trail that they're on. There's rocks and so forth, and what they do with their hands. You know, it's like you put your hands up when you're going down something steep to kind of help mitigate that impact, that landing. Like you see, like each guy's doing like little things with their arms or their hands or their shoulders.
Yeah, like that was kind of a drop there, where you'll see everything from the like marathoner thing of you just keep the rhythm with your arms to keep the glute activation to stop your quads from taking all the abuse, all the way down to the like totally dead hang arms that like
arms way up high even.
Yeah, just there for balance. And yeah, I mean that's something I picked up running trails with Dakota Jones, who's like one of the few people who's beaten Killian Jornet on the day, who's like, you know, on a decent day, who's like one of the best mountain runners ever, debatably the best. And that was one of the things that I picked up running around with Dakota. Yeah, this is the towpath now. Was just like the drop in the arms are just like this little bit just for balance, because you can just nuke down hills and just let your feet do what they're going to do. It's fun, man. I mean, there are skills involved with this, but once you get on the towpath, you need to be able to run 5:55 to 6:15 pace for the entire time to kind of like stay in the game.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the appeal to me is you really do have to have it all coming into there. And we're entering the era now where every year it seems like somebody's running some unbelievably fast time out there. So it's America's most prestigious 50 miler. I mean, it's a big freaking deal.
Would you have better results if you mainly just concentrated just on like marathon, half marathon, something like that? And if that is the case, you know, do you just not want to do that because you don't really care what's optimal? You want to do also what's fun?
Like, would I be better at a 50-mile race like this, or would I be?
Well, yeah, I guess
more competitive over the half.
Just choose either one. You know, you either choose like the strict regular marathon, so you can get to the Olympic trials as you're mentioning, or you stick to being well known in this.
I think I'm really good at running 5 hours. Like I think on my day when everything's right, there's very few people on the planet that can compete with me over like about a 5-hour time period. That's kind of the sweet spot where my level of neglect on myself and my level of like mental flow is optimized, where you don't really have to fuel, but you should.
When you say neglect on yourself, what do you mean specifically?
I don't like eating. I don't like drinking. I like to just get out there and get weird and just be free. And I feel like even standing here, like I feel like my cells are almost like vibrating at like, call it 10 miles an hour. And when I'm running that fast, I feel like aligned with myself on this weird thing where it's fast enough that mentally, boom, 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 the miles seem to go fast because it is a short amount of time, but it's slow enough that the effort is very low for me. And so like I can do that 100% nasal breathing, and there's something optimal about that just for my body and my gait and my rigidity and all that stuff. And when I can get perfectly into that place, there's some kind of like mental magic that happens out there. One of my years at JFK, a few years afterwards, where I ran a little bit faster and didn't place as well, I put it in my log, and you know I log everything. I have like 12 running logs, 12 years of running, just everything, interventions that I'm trying and shoes that I'm wearing and all of it. It's not super lengthy, but it's all the big things that I'm testing out and then takeaways from it. And I logged it with whatever 5 words or something, and it was just a prayer in a world without God. That's how I put it into my running log. And it's like a race like that, that's what I'm after, you know? And so I like to think I could get that with a half marathon or a marathon or a 100 miler, but there's something magic about like the 50 miler where, you know, I need 200 to 300 calories and I need a liter of fluid, and that's about it. And so you are getting out there. It is slow enough. It is long enough to have the time with yourself. But I'm not talented enough to compete with those guys over like a half or a full. But as the race gets longer, your intellect and your logistics and your ability to train and your ability to stay healthy matter as much as your raw talent. And, there's always those guys that are just like freaks, and they're going to come out and they're going to run 10 minutes faster than you and hurt my feelings because it's like they make it look easy because it is. It's like I'm over here like counting carbs and perfectly tapering and peaking and figuring out everything with 12 years running logs. And this dude rolls in with like a cup of coffee and a Pop-Tart and just like beats me at something. And it's like, well, it's cool that I get a front row seat to watching this freakish human talent, but man, it's like that definitely hurts your feelings. And so I'm just not that talented with running, but I am willing to give up everything to just like put everything on the altar of running.
Yeah, you're all in, right? You live in Colorado and you're at altitude. You have a trailer that has a sauna in it. Yeah,
nice sauna space, pocket sauna.
Your trailer has a
Faraday
pocket sauna.
Cage. Oh, dude, it's so nice. Whoa. I'd love to have you guys there. I mean,
you have any video of it where we can pull it up?
Yeah, probably. I know somewhere a few months back, maybe on my Instagram, I have a video of the Red Mill, which is a creation of my own design. And there's like, I don't know, a dozen of them around the world now. One of them's a bike trainer, and the rest of them are treadmills, as far as I know. And pretty much everyone's consulted me for it. And it's basically just a cotton drop cloth so that when you heat it up, it doesn't off-gas anything. Shout out to Brian with Sauna Space who put that on my radar of like, if you're heating up this unit, you should worry about what kind of glue you're putting in there and what kind of wood is treated, because it's like you're heating it up and you're just putting your body in there. And so a plain cotton drop cloth over an incline trainer, so a treadmill, and then a single bulb, big bulb, Sauna Space bulbs on the front, and then a 4 bulb, they call it the tungsten. It's like four big infrared bulbs on the back, and you just hang those in there, and then you have an incline trainer in there. Yeah, there we go.
So you actually train when you're in there?
Oh, that was just the pocket sauna. Right there. That's just our pocket sauna, and you can see it's kind of like rigged up in there, so we can clip that out. It was a previous post for the Red Mill, and then you clip that into the Red Mill, and you can get in there and do whatever pace work. It was probably a while ago.
Okay. I'll keep
before
digging.
that. Yeah. And
what's the injury that you have right now? You mentioned that you're like a little banged up.
It's just some kind of like mystery. Maybe it's soleus. Maybe it's popliteus. It's some kind of quirky lower leg on the right side that's giving me inhibition through the knee. And we did a pretty good session, just like mashing it out together and shooting the breeze, and it just doesn't seem to respond to anything. The good news about like me and my body and my running history is that I don't get running injuries, and the bad news is that I don't get running injuries, because like it would be great if I could just have IT band syndrome or a stress fracture or something where it's like, that's what's wrong with it. Here's what it is. Here's the outlook. Here's some things you can do. Whereas almost every injury I've had, one exception was an avulsion fracture, is just like a mystery. Where as much as I like my words and I like my anatomy and physiology, I go into the expert and they say, what's bothering you? And I say, I don't even know. I just like look at my leg and I'm like,
So it didn't happen after something. It just like you woke up one day and you were feeling that.
Yeah, it was like slowly creeped in. Where walking down the steps, I'll get up in the morning, get my morning sunlight, lay in the snow, and just walking down the steps in my porch, off my front porch, just that right knee stepping down, kind of a knees over toes, VMO dip kind of movement.
Yeah,
was giving me pain weeks before it was limiting any running. And part of it is, usually historically, I can just kind of like slow down and run more, and everything will fix itself out. And I don't know, maybe I'm getting old or something. Like it doesn't seem to be the case right now, but I think it's really just magnified by running. There we go. By running faster, I think is really the issue.
Oh, there's a treadmill in there, huh?
Yeah, just like rocking the Skinners, super minimal little sock shoes and the skivvies. You got to maximize the skin so that the light can get as deep into your tissues as it can.
Yeah, you have those shoe socks on right now, right?
Yeah, man. Brand new pair. Shipped them out just for the rest of this trip.
Can you figure out how to get your foot up on the? I don't know if you can get the table's probably too high, but there you go.
Yeah, just a little like. It's just like I tell people it's a sock with like a track surface shredded onto it.
Yeah,
and then they
I dig that.
They mold it. They mold it right into there. They just like dip them into there. And I got 800 kilometers out of a pair. and so like 500 miles ish. And then I had another pair that I was logging miles for a buddy at the company, and I was like, I'll let you know how long these last. And I used them for a trip into the Himalayas, and I'm like running up in the Himalayas, and I just like floured the bottom of these things, like just blew the things out running trails. And yeah, man, they're a really cool toy, but it's cool to have something so stable like that to be able to, because then you're minimal and that like forward incline when you really crank it up there. That's something you can do with almost any running injury. And then because of the heat, man, the pull on your blood, on your plasma volume is I think magic. Like I think there's something to that. And so I'm a big advocate for heat training. I've been doing it really seriously since like 2008, 2009. I just had a mentor that back in Aurora, Illinois, that said like, oh, this is the poor man's altitude training. And little did I know that a decade later or whatever it was, I would find out, yeah, actually you get an increase in plasma volume, so the watery part of your blood, but then you get a compensatory because your body likes having your hematocrit, the percentage of your blood that's red blood cells to water, basically. It likes a certain set point in there. So if you increase the amount of plasma volume, you will get a compensatory increase in red blood cells. And it's not as much as like performance-enhancing drugs or like being up at really high altitude or these other things that people do to get the same bump, but it is something.
It's something.
And that's fascinating. Plus,
How
it just
long
makes
do you,
everything feel
How long
good.
do you train in there for?
When I'm hurt, I'll do 45 minutes a day on the red mill.
Yeah.
And that'll be 90+% of my volume, and that's like pretty much volitional failure. I mean, if I'm really going in there, I mean, even slowing it down and slowing it down and slowing it down, my heart rate will be getting 160s, 170s, and for me that's really, really working. And when you're getting it through heat, you might feel okay, and then you get out of there and just beat yourself and just lay on the floor for an hour.
What's the
because
temperature
you're so
in there?
cooked.
Yeah.
It's, I think ambient, it's only like mid to high 80s.
Okay.
But since that infrared heat is heating you, 2 to 3 to 5+ inches into your body, a skinny guy like me, like that's my entire body. Like with enough angles on bulbs, that's 100% of my tissue is getting that.
Wow.
And so that's pretty serious in there. And yeah, I do have for like the sake of heat shock proteins and academic curiosity, I do have a rectal thermometer in there. And so
Wait, while you're on it?
I can do it while I'm moving, and I have a few times. But I don't know that I need to. It's just the second I stop, I'll keys through the thing.
The second you stop, okay, I was like, walk us through this. So you get off, and then you just like check it out. Okay.
Because yeah, I mean, I can get core temps, true core temps. You can't do sublingual or temple or anything like that. That doesn't really mean anything.
Man, you guys get all the data.
I love it, man. I love
Let's
it.
go. Good
I love
for you.
it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can get 102, 103 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's a lot of heat shock proteins.
I think the last time we talked about this was with Ben Greenfield. Like what?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Useful. Okay.
Got to check everything.
Yeah. Ben, crew me at World's Toughest Mudder. It came up in some media outlet. They're like, watch this guy come into the pit, which is where you get all your aid, you get water and food and everything. And he's gonna have like Ben Greenfield pointing a red light at him and stuff because like everybody knows me from the red lights and I'm just like a nerd. And Ben was also in that same faster study.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of like overlapping things. And somebody was like, watch him just have like, he'll just be taking whatever on the sidelines and biohacking his way into this win. And yeah, I think that'd be a blast. So Ben, if you're listening, let's do it.
How has lifting been beneficial for you with running? Like, and how much lifting do you do? Or
yeah. I mean, I would pit the training block that I did last fall against anybody's training block for any sport ever, under any circumstances, altitude or not, clean or not, like any sport ever. I mean, I was doing 125 miles a week of running. I was doing a few honest workouts snuck in there. I was doing lifting for basically my whole body. I was doing a lot of obstacle work. So, dangling on stuff and grip work and that sort of thing.
You're getting ready for an obstacle race?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I did a 24-hour obstacle race, or attempted to. I did 12 hours of it or something like that. And it went so wrong. And I was prepping for that just because, two of my training buddies and best friends in the world were doing it. And I kind of had this realization that I'll just like hop in here and we'll bro out. It'll be great.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was prepping for that and being able to lift that much because, going into the marathon, like in June, I need to weigh 127 pounds. There's just no way around it. And it's like my set point as I perceive it is probably about 140. My body would like to weigh that more than it would, if I was just yeah, that's post Red Mill, just beached. Mm-hmm. If I was just hanging out and like doing gym bro stuff or like just exercising to be generally fit, I would probably weigh 145 pounds or so. And I don't know where that would stop. Like if I tried to pack on muscle, I've wondered about that because it seems to be more of my proclivity there. But being able to lift that much and being able to be okay if I weigh 137 on the start line, which is about what I weighed, I was able to recover and feel great and have fewer pains than I've ever had ever. And that tells me something in there. And in the past, I've done like build up to basically like 2 or 3 working sets of low reps, like 3 to 5. Don't really look at the weight, although it's disproportionate. That means laughably heavy for a skinny runner. And do 1 push, 1 pull, 1 lower body. And I would do that on Mondays, and that's all I would do.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm looking at again now, where like, okay, I was never hurt. Like, I was never even uncomfortable. And since I've got rid of that, trying to like wither away a little bit, it's been like one thing after the next. And so for the average person, they don't care if they pack on 5 more pounds of muscle. That's a good thing. Whereas me, I mean, I would like to be, I think I need to be, if I'm going to trials qualify, 127-ish pounds between the 1st of June and like the 5th of July. And then after that, I'll just start getting jacked again for obstacle course racing in the fall. But it's played more of a role than I would have credited it with as far as resistance training. And when I'm training heavy in a perfect world, I don't need anything. I mean, the solution to too many miles is just running more miles, or the solution to running too many fast miles is just run more slow miles. And that's kind of been, I don't know, part of my charm to myself is that I can just like put in training volume. And even something like a couple of hex bar deadlifts where I'll use bands to make it running specific, and I'll use whatever that is, like the higher grip pattern on a hex bar to make it as running specific as I can. Even that, when I wasn't doing that and I added it in the last 3 to 5 months, I was boom. I mean, I immediately went from 130 to like 133, and my body's just like it wants to pack on muscle mass.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but all my like real runner friends that are talented, it doesn't matter what they do, they'll never pack on muscle mass. They can't even deadlift body weight, and that's why they're faster than me. It's like their body just doesn't. They can just put in the work, and so it's interesting because a lot of elite athletes say, "Oh yeah, lifting is the best thing ever." It's like, yeah, because if you're already 13 some in the 5K, the genetic diversity within that group of humans is so small, and none of them can put on muscle mass, or basically none of them can, right? And so of course they think lifting is just great as a blanket statement. And where you have guys like me trying to pull off this like quick sleight of hand where how strong do I need to be? If I could go next door into the gym and deadlift 2 times body weight, having not deadlifted in 6 months and having never deadlifted to get strong, it's like, I'm probably strong enough. I don't know if I'm going to benefit from doing that, but I know that doing that with any regularity, I'll just pack on muscle mass. So I don't really know what to do with that. It's just such a fun science experiment, right? And then being able to, I'm 30, being able to put this aerobic development that I've spent more than a decade doing religiously to work with like obstacle course racing or any number of things. If it lasts longer than 4 minutes, I would bet on me. It doesn't matter what it is. Like and if it lasts hours and hours and hours, it's like I'll get it eventually. Like if you and me, Nsima, were gonna roll, you'd have me for the first hour, but you would have to break something of mine if we just like kept going at it and going at it and going at it, because for whatever reason, I've kind of always had that. And then I've spent a lot of time like refining until it's just inexhaustible. I mean, the amount of work that I can do at just the right effort it's like shocking, even just subjectively to experience it. It's really cool. And I'm the best I can hope for is like a mediocre elite marathoner. And so I would like to go ahead and check that box for mediocre elite marathoner, get my Olympic trial standard, and then set that aside and chase any number of things. So like the obstacle course racing world is definitely appealing to me. It's hard to fund. It's like a very country club sport. Like the people at the top end have a lot of money, and everybody said, "Oh well, yeah, I didn't wear a wetsuit the whole time for World's Toughest, like even once the sun set and I probably needed one. And people said, oh, well, you should have had a shorty, like a swim run wetsuit or something. And I'm like, listen, I had one wetsuit. I wasn't going to have 3. And they're like, yeah, well, you really need like quite a few wetsuit options to have. I'm like, these things are $800 a piece. Like you're throwing that off like, just go ahead and buy another wetsuit. It's like, I'm on a runner budget, you know? It's like, you can only do so much.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So what, because like you're at 5% body fat right now, right?
Yeah.
Around there.
Yeah, 5.5.
And you said for Olympic trials you need to be around 127. So what is the process of like purposefully losing muscle? Like what do you have to do as far as nutrition is concerned? And like, how do you handle that? Because in our heads, it's like, you're already so lean. So at this point, you're going to be maybe losing a little bit of fat, but you're going to be losing some muscle too. So what do you do?
Yeah, I think hopefully I can transiently lose a little bit of fat, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, one thing that's intriguing, you guys, let me know what you think of this. What about like, I've heard one of the arguments against like BCAAs is that you're giving your body the signal to not get catabolic, but you're not giving it the fuel to actually not catabolize things. And so you might be able to maintain the muscle mass that you're working while withering away muscle mass from elsewhere. If you're taking the aminos out of like, say, my upper body that's not doing a whole lot of work and just putting them onto my ass and my adductors, it's like that would be ideal.
So you're
What do we think about
maintaining
that?
training volume in your lower body and you're taking away training volume from your upper bodies, which partially what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, I won't pick up anything heavier than a grocery bag between now and like July.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, maybe I'll try to sneak some deadlifts into there, but like real low rep, just strength is a skill, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think you can get stronger without gaining weight, but it's it's not always easy, especially if it's a new stimulus.
Yeah.
But if you do a low enough amount of volume and don't go too heavy, you can probably gain strength, especially like what you're talking about, maybe gaining some strength in like maybe some areas that count, like the calves and the hamstrings, the glutes, maybe the quads too, but without like really working them with a ton of sets or a ton of reps. Really trying to tap into the nervous system, you might find some value in that. But again, if it's like a new stimulus, you might have to take your time getting that new stimulus, because in the beginning you might gain weight right away, even just from like the uptake of the nutrients that you're, because sometimes these things just make you eat more too.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to the scale. In the end, the scale should be able to be a net positive towards what you're looking for. But I also think, what about like what do the other guys weigh? That's would be interesting. Like, what are some of the top guys? What do they weigh? I know that the height can be a different factor as well. But what do these guys usually weigh?
I think the closest person to emulate would be the second fastest marathoner in the world right now. The dude's about my height and about my weight. But
Current weight, or
when
the
I
weight
say
you're
about,
aiming for?
he's like 123. I think I'm like less than a full inch taller than him, and he's 10 pounds lighter than me. But it's like, dude's got legs, and we look comparably. And like, if you looked at us under, look at picture him, picture me. It's like the comparable enough stuff.
What's his name?
And Bekele,
How do you spell it?
phonetically,
BKELE, I would assume.
It's
Yeah.
a B.
Is it a B?
I don't know. You know how it is those Northeast African names. None of us are super confident, because it's like there's like 5 or 6 names, and you look at them, and it's kind of like hearing a Agamedov in the UFC or something, and you're like, oh man, Chariot, that guy sounds fast.
Yeah. Kenenisa Bekele. So BEKELE.
Slower.
BEKELE.
KELE.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of those generic Kalenjin names that sound super fast.
Are any of the guys like 160 pounds or no?
No, not. I mean, there's probably a tall person or two to look at. I mean, especially like at the 2 marathon times. I'm sure there's some freaks out there that manage to do it. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head, but I know historically we've had some dudes that are like a little huskier, and it's tough to know what you're looking at. Like, are they fast because of that? Are they the same type of person that I am? Oh man, that's like the skinniest shot ever. Get one where it's like a cross country course, and you get one where he's on the ground. Everybody looks skinny when you're off the ground. You're all relaxed and stuff.
Gotcha. There we go. He's still pretty small.
He's lean.
Yeah, but
He's
I
got
mean,
some
like,
muscle bellies.
if
Those shoulders.
take my clothes off, is like, yeah. I mean, he's got some legs. He's
Yeah.
got. I would, it's always tough to know these guys, but it's like, I would bet our measurements aren't all that far off each other, or at least our proportions. Like if you took, thickest part of your thigh, that sort of thing. And he manages to do it. I mean, he's very, very close to that world record, whatever, seconds away from Kipchoge's.
What about potentially, this is getting into like some weird stuff, but like what about, it's not that weird, but what about just gaining a lot of weight? What about weighing, what about letting yourself get to 150 for a little while?
To what end? Then what?
Keep running and then lose weight.
I mean, that'd be awesome. If I was confident I could lose the weight, I think it would probably be really bulletproof if I could
go into a running bulk.
Yeah. I mean,
extra weight on you, and as the competition comes, maybe you can, maybe over a period of time you can lose some weight, but you could maybe build up some more resilience that way, be a little bigger, be a little bit more jacked, go through a good training block.
Yeah.
I mean, on paper, it sounds
like a few training blocks though. Like,
yeah. It's going to take time. It's going to take time.
I mean, I went from that 137 something to like 130 even between mid-November and mid-January. And that was going from obstacle course racing, training for a 24-hour race, to losing all that strength work. And suddenly, like, I can't, at least I'm not lifting, I'm not throwing stuff around, not throwing my body around, and then lost the weight. And so I did a small version of what you're describing. And I think it worked very well. Because then like Houston, I was gimpy. I couldn't, my right leg was all upset with me, and I couldn't do all the peaking workouts that I wanted to do, but I had a pretty freaking smooth day out there. Like I was definitely in 221 marathon shape without any kind of drama or doubts associated with that. And that was kind of what you're describing. And as I age into being super durable, I'm eyeing more and more stuff like that of, what if I train for a nice, long, rugged obstacle race every fall, or every summer or whatever it is, and put on some muscle mass and get strong and have some fun doing that. And then just kind of slowly let the body do what it will to chase like a 50 miler in the spring or long snowshoe races even. It's like there's some potential in there. I think it's really cool. And I think it's healthy to be seasonal, right? I think it's really healthy to kind of like let your body do its thing.
I'm curious because like that actually brings up something really interesting. Have you ever done that before? Because it seems like from what you're saying, you are fighting against what your body wants to do. Like you could gain muscle pretty easily, but you're trying to get down to a weight so you can hit this time, which I understand. But, it sounds like it could be beneficial in terms of just your resilience, tendon strength, a bunch of other things, to let your body just kind of do what it wants and gain that muscle and maybe gain a bit of strength. But the question is would you be willing to, I guess, step away from what you really want to do currently to allow your body to do that?
I mean, I think I did in the fall.
You did in the fall?
Yeah, I mean, I was managing like nutrient timing a bit to make sure that I didn't like intentionally bulk up all that much. And I was keeping it very low reps.
And your body weight was still volume. Like, was your body weight still like, well, not body weight, body fat still like 5, 6, 7%? Like how high did your body fat get? I mean, visually.
Yeah, I didn't test it, but I think I only got leaner. I think the stimulus of like putting weight on things, I think I only got leaner. I mean, you see there's one of those recent, it's not like I was doing anything, but like one of those start line shots at World's Toughest Mudder, it's like I'm looking like I just got done lifting. Like I'm all vascular and stuff. It's like the only thing that I imagined that I changed is I added a lot of strength, and I managed to keep it like under 133 for basically the whole training block. And then the second I added in volume right at the end to like peak up for a race where I'm gonna have to do this for a really long time, it packed on real quick. But I think without a whole lot of change in like absolute amount, like poundage of body fat. And so I was just a little bit leaner. And like, I mean, you could see every little striation in my back doing pull-ups on one of these videos that I captured of just like every little bit.
I think you can like science some of this. If you listen to Andrew Huberman and Andy Galpin, they did like a 6-part series. It's really interesting. But if you mix in like isometrics, plyometrics, sled work. The sled is only concentric work. Concentric work doesn't contribute as much as eccentric work to muscle hypertrophy, but it does contribute to strength gain. So like there's probably a bunch of ways if you kind of were to write it out where you can probably figure out a way to hack some of this, get strong, feel stronger, probably feel faster without really a lot of weight gain. I think you could figure it out.
I mean, I'll be right back to that drawing board in the summer.
It's just going to be tricky. And then plus you're probably going to want to you're like, once you get into a workout, you're probably going to want to do more reps and more sets and things like that.
For sure.
But you would have to sacrifice and not do too much of the bodybuilding stuff, I think.
Yeah, I love lifting. It really, like, it's easier to love than running, right? I think running is this kind of like gentle romantic love, whereas like weight, like throwing around weight is lusty, man. You can just get in there and just like, it's the nice burn, nice like single spot, you know, you get a pump on, like
isolation.
Like, yeah, there's something to that. It's just, I don't know, maybe it's easier to love. It's nice.
How can some of the listeners that maybe just want to get into running, what are some suggestions that you have for somebody that wants to try to get into running, and just really don't have much proficiency with it?
Yeah, I think running as a skill, like a lot of the stuff, this won't be news to your listeners, but it's like nasal breathing, minimal shoes, seeing running as something that you're inefficient at, not something that you suck at. Because it's like, you know, looking at yourself as a runner, it's like you might not be very good at running, but there's a lot that goes into that. There is the aerobic development, but I mean, you guys know you're not going to develop skill and aerobic capacity at the same time. It's just not a thing. Like if you're not skilled enough to crank out reps with it, you're not going to get aerobic capacity. And if you crank out reps with something that you're not skilled at, you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
And so something like running, something like 30 seconds or a minute of jogging and keeping it gentle, and then walking till you can recover yourself and doing that, I think that's a really, really good place to start to build proficiency at this activity, right? And I think people are very harsh because they think there's too many boxers that are like, I ran 8 miles a day or whatever it is. And they're thinking in terms of calories or miles or things like that, and not in terms of developing proficiency at this new skill. Because once you develop the skill, you can run forever. And especially if you're coming into it out of the gates with, I'm going to engage with my body mindfully and see how this new, what is this like? You know, what's the texture of my chest when I go run at this pace or whatever. It's always, it's funny to me as someone who's such an advocate and practitioner of very slow, mellow training, to be coming down onto the river path in town and seeing the person who is running faster than I am when they're running, and then they're breaking it up with walking because they can't sustain that. Like, you know, if you're willing to run 11-minute miles with me, we could probably just like shoot the breeze and jog on this river path and talk about how pretty the snow is on the rocks with the water going by it, and really just kind of get weird.
Yeah.
I think there's something really cool to that. If you see running as a way to generate enough body heat this time of the year, you know, in the winter, to generate enough body heat to appreciate being outdoors without bundling all up or feeling cold, that's a pretty cool entry point, right? Mm-hmm. If you play with the game that you're playing instead of like force against force, this kind
almost
of
like you're just out on a walk and you're like, fuck, it's cold, and you just run until you get a little bit warm.
Yeah.
Right?
And where does that you know, where does the heat start? Go outside, feel that you're cold, and then wait till you feel the heat changing. And where does that start in your body? Where does that feel? What is this like? And going at this with this idea of curiosity, obviously all this like biohacky stuff, it's curiosity to me. It's having something new to play with. And you know, I'm the best client for myself because it's like I'll get some crazy harebrained idea and I'll do it every day for 6 months and find out.
Yeah.
And I think if the average person brought that kind of energy into whatever it is they're looking at for fitness, I think they would adhere to it longer, and I think they'd have more fun, because we tend to think about this like very mean, you're defaulting to not loving yourself, right? You're defaulting to like, there's something wrong with me and I need to like burn these calories so that I can eat a few hundred calories extra and still lose weight or whatever it is. Whereas if you think about it, you have a hard time stopping kids from running, right? I mean, I'm sure they're getting more docile as time goes by. I'm sure it's easier now, but if you could run like giddily, if you could be giddy when you were running, you know, you think about like your older brother or like somebody chasing you and like scooping you up, or like, you know, the lifeguard looking away and you're sprinting across the pool deck to get over there. If you could run like that and not get tired, I don't think you'd find time to do all that much else, right? Mm-hmm. It would be great. And so I think if you're coming at it with that from the get-go, how do I capture more of that? And I think a lot of it is like bare feet or minimal footwear is an awesome place to start because you feel the ground and it makes you feel more playful and it makes you feel more giddy and get out there and it puts you into that mind space of how do I interact with this surface? What does it feel like to run on gravel? I like gravel's something I love, man. I think that's.
Have you always used like minimal footwear, or was it a transition for you at some point? Because for many people, it was a transition.
I think I started. Yeah, I mean, well before I got out of high school, I started just using like track flats and being like, oh, this feels better. And then when Five Fingers came out in like 2008, 2009, when you could acquire them, I got a pair of Flows, which were like the siped like water ones that actually had an upper and everything. I was like, I want these. And yeah, so I think I had a perfect transition of I wasn't running all that many miles, so I was able to do that. But yeah, I think that helps a ton. And yeah, curiosity. I mean, whatever you're curious about, if you don't have the curiosity or the wonder, then it's probably not the right sport. Do something else. I mean, there's you got to wonder at some point. I mean, I wonder about all kinds of stuff. I need more bodies to play with. I need more to do. But I think mixing it up on surfaces is another good thing to do. Have a little bit of trail, have a little bit of mountains, have a little bit of road, have a little bit of everything. That's a really good way to build like nice balanced running form too. And just as a digression, I love running gravel. You're talking about races that I'm known for, and I think we kind of got lost in like the JFK sphere. But I won the 50-mile national champs and I won the 100K national champs, and those were as a kid, like as a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid, like finding out that ultra running was a thing, and the International Olympic Committee does do an ultra. It's 100K. It's every other year, and there is a Team USA. Like you could represent your country, and all you have to do is run 62 miles in less than 7 hours, and you'll get onto the team. And I was like, I could do that. I could totally do that. And so I looked at all these selector events, and JFK was just one of them. Oh, there we go.
Running on Legos.
I'm also like a 3-time Lego lava walk world champ in Durango, Colorado. Come at me.
So let me ask you this: you did that 100-miler? Did you ever do anything Olympic wise with ultras or?
So I did the 100-kilometer.
100-kilometer.
Yeah, I did. They have selector events for that, and it was Comrades in South Africa. It was JFK 50 in whatever it was, in November, the 50-mile national champs the next October, and then the 100K national champs the following April. And so I literally did all 3 of those that are domestic. I was like, I want this spot. I emailed the team selector coordinator, whatever, and said like, how do I make sure I get on this team? Yeah. And they're like, well, the standards are there. It's nice to hit the time standards, but really, like, if you want to be on the team, beat somebody that's already on the team. And I was like, all right, well, hopefully they'll show up to these events, so I don't have to just chase them wherever they are. Because elites tend to kind of make the final call 10 days out or 20 days out when you're in shape for the event. And so I did those events, and I won the 50-mile national champs, but it was gravel. It was like 5,500 feet of gain, 5,500 feet of loss, one big loop. Gravel. It was unseasonably hot. It was like 80 degrees, 100% humidity, Pennsylvania. Yeah. And I still like imposter syndrome, right? It was like, well, it was hot. I mean, I got there on race morning and I opened up the car door and I looked at my crew and I said, I just won this race. Like I opened up that car door and I'm all bundled up Colorado style because the sun isn't up. And I open up that car door and it's just wet, hot air comes in. I was like, 5 to 6 hours, up and down hills, but runnable hills, gravel, heat. Nobody can beat me today. It's like this is my jam. You couldn't make this event better for me. Like you couldn't come up with all the creativity in the world. You would have a hard time making a better event for my body to thrive on. Yeah. And so I won that event, but I didn't feel like I did all that much. Right. Like,
did that allow you to make the team?
I don't know if it would have.
Oh, okay.
So I came back 6 months later and won the 100K national champs. Yeah. That is the only event in that lineup that has auto entry. So whoever wins that event, regardless of your time, as long as you're under 7:19 or something, you get auto entry onto the team. And so like, I felt like the 50-mile champs was a fluke, but then it's like the 100K national champs, like, all right, I did it again. Like I beat the previous year's 100K national champ, the current year's 50K national champ, and I was the current year's 50-mile national champ. It's like the 3 of us were in there and we had a proper race. So like I split whatever it was, like 5:18 through 50 miles. So it's like, 6 flat miles would be 5 hours even through 50 miles. So it's like we were moving and like there were moves being made. It was 5 degrees Fahrenheit every time. It was a 5K loop with a 180 degree turn in it. And so like the inside of my right foot. So that's however many laps. And so the inside of my right foot and the outside of my left foot were blistered from taking that 180-degree turn so many times and just turning around the course. And every time coming around the front straight on the course, my eyes would water and my nose would water because it was so cold. It was like just 100% humidity or whatever it was, headwind out there, and you're just like dribbling. And so it kind of just went to crap for my competitors. I didn't feel like I really did all that much, but I got my team spot. And then I went to Croatia and was like a little off my game, and we had like a team plan. And so it's like once you fall to 4th place or whatever on the team, you don't really need to finish because like only top 3 score.
Yeah.
And so my representing Team USA was a huge letdown and a turning point in my life because
that's a big deal though. You represented Team USA.
It was cool.
Yeah, that's cool, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit of the gear left still, and I keep it around, but it's kind of
They gave you steroids.
No, not that kind of gear.
Okay.
They didn't even pay for my travel, man. I put that travel on credit. And then they said, oh, well, we're fully funded, end quote, which is the quotes that are in USATF, which I probably shouldn't even mention by name, through our governing body. And they said, well, you're fully funded this year. You know, the stipend last year for it was like $900, and that wasn't fully funded, or 2 years ago, whatever it was. And now we're fully funded, so, you know, don't worry about it. Like, they're notoriously, it'll take 6 months or whatever, but they'll get you to it. And I get this check in, I think it was February, and the race was in September. So it was months and months later, and it was for $543, if I remember that right, which is probably a number I'm not supposed to quote, but it's like, it was not, you know, that was a $1,200 flight to get to Croatia.
Yeah, to get to Croatia.
And it's like, they hoard us all out to Nike, where you can't have sponsor logos. You can't. You can have your own shoes, but you can't have sponsor logos. We had instructions for like with an American flag to not cover up the Nike logo and like all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't owe Nike anything. Like, and they certainly don't want me like being a vagrant. Like, you know, they don't like I. It's not that I like being a character, but it's like I want to be genuine. You know,
Yeah.
I want to be me. And so I had all this like baggage coming out of that. It was disillusioning in the best sense, right? It was like, well, this isn't funded. This was the dream, and I thought it was going to take me a while to get this dream. And not, you know, I aimed at it in 2016 and was like the 7th man on a 6-man team, so I didn't get to go. And then that's why 2 years later it was like I'm doing every freaking event, like I'm gonna make this happen, and made it happen. And then it was a letdown, right? And you kind of think that something like that, like IOC and Team USA and all this stuff, it's like it was a turning point for my life that I think I'm still kind of transitioning what that means now that that's not a draw. You know, I kind of figured I would do the 100K team a few times and go to the world champs and try to compete there, and maybe do Team USA for the 24-hour, which is another one that they have. And it was disillusioning. It's something where I'm still transitioning to what, you know, who I am without that goal, because it was my, you know, it was my Olympic-esque dream. It was the dream of a kid, but I guess I'm just not a kid anymore.
It seems like it messes with some of the freedom that you enjoy with some of the other stuff that you do. It seems like the events are fun, and it seems like those are goals that you have, but it seems like you just love the training too.
I do. I don't think I would train that hard if there wasn't an event. I don't think I could. Like the having a proper periodization to aim at something lets you train unsustainably, because you can just peak on the day and just be a monster on the day and do something that seems crazy relative to your training. And I think a lot of people would do these events, and people do now, would do these events just on their own, out on the roads or whatever. I don't think that would ever be me. I like the competition. I like, even if I'm an hour ahead of everyone or an hour behind everyone, I like being out there and feeling like it's a social thing, and feeling like the pressure of like, this is a race. You know, we have a defined finish line. You better freaking get there. Yeah. And there's some magic to that, of like, you know, you put on a bib and you put on a bib and I put on a bib, and like, you know, race numbers. And it's like, until we cross the finish line, like, this shit's real. You know, like when that gun goes off, it's like this shit's real. Like I think it's a low blow. I don't feel inspired when I see the people like helping somebody across the finish line. It's like, dude, that person can take that bib off and catch a ride if they want to get to the finish line. You know, like you're hanging out around somebody who, you know, their pregnancy plans to do this natural, and you're like, you sure you don't want the epidural? You sure you don't want the epidural? Because it's like you're 26 miles in, something's shutting down. Like, you're gonna take it. And so like, I think there's something sacred to my mind about like putting on a race number and being like, we're gonna give it our best. And, you know, for the elites, we're gonna put on this super scarcity mindset. You know, we're gonna say there's one deer, and I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna catch it, and I'm gonna feed my little res dog at home, and I'm gonna feed the lady friend, and I'm gonna feed my training buddies, or you're gonna do the same. And there's one deer, and it's like, I will kill you over that. You know, it's like I might just be okay fasting, but it's like the team's got to eat. You know, and I'm not playing around with that, and that's one of the reasons that I've felt the need for so many years to kind of like stay broke, because then you stay hungry. It's like kind of a real thing. I mean, when I won that 2018,
Are you doing a good job of that?
Oh yeah. I mean, Andrew here was so nice. He's like, here's recommended restaurants and hotels near the gym, and I'm like, dude, I'm sleeping in the Prius out front, like until somebody kicks me out. Like I'm decked out. It's great, and so I think that's good. But even that feels comfortable. I mean, I did quite a few years without a car. I mean, it feels comfortable. I do an electric unicycle at home. It's great, and it's good queuing.
An electric unicycle?
Yeah, it's like the one wheels, but you're symmetrical. So, and you can put a bigger wheel into it. So like it's an 18-inch wheel. I can go 35 miles an hour.
Damn.
You look this up. Electric unicycle. Are you?
Sounds crazy.
It's like a Segway,
It's a standing
but it's
one wheel.
one wheel, and you're facing forward, and there's no handlebars. So
Oh.
So no handlebars. Do you know like which brand that you were using?
I have a Gotway.
Yeah, I think I got it.
Sounds crazy.
The model I'm on is called a Tesla V3 or something like that, and it's
I have a unicycle. I need to bring it in here.
You do?
You would like it. Yeah, Jake messed around with it for a while. He's like, this fucking thing's impossible. But he was able to do it, I think, a little bit. But I don't remember.
All kinds of cool stuff here.
I know one video went super viral. Everyone was like, "This dude's a superhero," and he was just like zipping around, hopping off and on curbs, and that's what I zip around on Durango on. It's great, man.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That's
So
really
yeah,
sick.
just like living simple and kind of reverse engineering everything that I need. I mean, if I can feed myself quality food and feed my dog and occasionally afford some travel, which is, you know, it's easy to come by.
Afford a cheesecake, maybe?
Sponsor dollars. Yeah, I mean, cheesecake for dinner last night.
Do they test for performance enhancing drugs with most of the competitions that you
They like
compete
to
in?
say that it's clean sport or something. I've never even peed in a cup. I've literally like all the stuff that I've done, even races accepting prize money and performance bonuses and all that, and even the international stuff. I've never been drug tested, not once.
Do competitors complain or have any concerns, or they don't care?
I think a lot of people just they're under the impression that no one's doing this professionally, and there's a few people that are making buku dollars doing this right now, and then there's a lot of people that are like semi making it viable. And there's, I think it's just it's insisting on being a young enough sport. I think still that people are, you know, the average person thinks that there's no motivation to do so. And the people at the top end are like, oh yeah, clean sport. But I mean, show me your blood work. Like, you know, I had a little bit of blood work done a little while ago and like published all of it. I was like, well, you know, hey, you know, do with this what you will. It's just kind of like, this is my step towards actually having clean sport, because I think it's kind of a farce anyway. I think the stuff that you would be using for this would be like HGH or like small dose testosterone or
HGH?
or, yeah, just for recovery or something comparable. You know, there's a lot of peptides that I think would be like secretagogues. I think that would be fascinating for a runner. I'm not sure how much it would or wouldn't help, but I think the training that you're doing is extremely abusive, and so why not? And
THC, mushrooms, LSD, like all that stuff.
There's one race I know that tests for THC.
They make sure that you took some.
Yeah, they give it out at the start line.
Wait, they really test for THC?
Yeah,
Or
I mean
is that a
the
joke?
international standard. No, the international standard is they used to say you had 15. I think it's nanograms a deciliter, whatever the unit is. You used to be able to do 15, and that's like international. So that was saying, you know, you don't want to be actively high, certainly. And then they recently tenfolded it, so now it's 150. So now the move is you could use it to help you sleep the night before and still be clean the next morning. You know, clean, whatever that means. That they're defining what clean means. And so I think there's a whole lot of gray area. And I think it's less that I have issue with performance enhancing drugs outright, and more that I don't ever want to take anything that's really helping me, because I want to know if like what I'm doing is working better. And then I think there's so many cool things that are at our disposal that aren't band. And so and people don't even use that. I mean, it's like my system for sleeping is a performance enhancing intervention for sure. And it'll help me live longer. Maybe I'll be a little smarter. Maybe I'll be a little more
Don't tease us. What's the system?
CBN's great.
CBN?
It's a cannabinoid, so it does come from cannabis. The first company I was working with was Sandland, and they definitely did all right by me, and it's an awesome product. But it did have a little bit of melatonin in it, and I don't know. I think they might have changed the formula by now, but it's CBN based, and I think that's a really, really cool thing that seems to, if anything, increase REM sleep a little bit, and it doesn't really affect anything else. But boom, I mean, I took a little bit last night. Put on the eye shade, put on this is an awesome hack. Put on I'll do an audio book or a podcast or something. It has to be the right thing. Like, oh man, what is it? Star Talk with Neil deGrasse. Oh man, that dude's voice, man. You have an excellent podcasting voice too, Nsima. But yeah, you guys, it's too much interesting stuff on here. I wouldn't want to fall asleep to it. But throw that on, put like a 45-minute sleep timer on, and then bring the speed to like 8/10. Or like on Audible, you can do 7/10 even, and bring it slowed down a little bit. And I talk fast to like people that do. I like when I'm out on runs, I'll do 3 times speed or 3.5 times speed. Like I got stuff to learn, and I'll slow it down at night and kind of just lock into that story. 99 times out of 100, it works better than anything.
So for you, it's primarily that supplement from Sandland.
Sandland's been good. I think just getting the cannabinoid, I think it's legal in all 50 states or 48 of them at least, and you can just get it in bulk somewhere. And I don't.
Is it a specific cannabinoid or?
Yeah, CBN.
CBN is what it's called. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like you'd have CBD, right? Everybody knows about that, or THC obviously, and CBN's really, really interesting.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, you should play with it. And you guys measure sleep architecture, right? Is that an Aura over there?
Yeah.
So it's like you'll see the data. Boom. And then we're as a house, we're working on a product. We're just gonna like offer it to somebody. And I have no interest in being in the supplement industry, but if I could bring in an extra few $1,000s a year, that would make sure that we can all keep traveling while talking about doing LSD in the mountains and stuff, because like that's not sponsorable by a big company.
So this is you and a group of other people. Like
the Ultrahouse Durango. It's kind of just like my house, right? And as soon as I built this up enough to where I had all of the toys that I wanted, I had all of the contacts with the sponsors that I needed to just like scoot by, and I had my house stocked with like all the products that you need to train heavy and recover well. As soon as I had that, I was like, all right, let's share this. Like let's get other people in here. I'm dreaming of like a cross country team worth, so like 5 to 7 of fully funded people where they could show up to my house on my porch with a dream and literally nothing else. And maybe a few results would be nice. And clothe them in casual clothing, clothe them in workout clothing, give them shoes, and cover their travel and offer performance bonuses, just humble performance bonuses. And it's like, if you want health insurance, if you want a car, you might have to work. But it's like, if you just want to train and eat and sleep, then you should be able to do that, right? A kind of an Olympic training facility.
Yeah.
And I would like to offer that, and that's kind of the big motivating factor right now of, I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of things that I've found that worked and that didn't, and putting that all into like a book, I'll take 100% of the money that I take from that, and that'll go towards whatever, yurts and an off-grid chunk of land somewhere at the perfect altitude, hopefully in the Durango area.
Sounds like you're starting a cult.
Oh yeah.
If
you go,
come in.
Yeah. We have our front page. I think I put that.
Just imagine somebody on a treadmill. They're on their treadmill and he's like, all right, get ready.
Like, no, I'm just trying to get data. There's nothing weird.
Oh no! By the time we make it to there, we'll do one of those where you swallow it and you just Bluetooth the temperature in there, dialed, and then we'll reuse it. Obviously, we'll clean it in between, but
oh god,
a little bit of hazing.
That's really sick though, dude. That's really awesome.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that drew me to Mark is like, one, I'm an abnormal person. Like I've never had mentorship for any of this stuff. It's like I've kind of just had to invent this up as I'm going along. So, there were a few hard years. I will say the biggest thing that Team USA did for me is let me have I feel like an easier to love relationship with my family, because instead of like, what the hell is Anthony doing? Like it was like,
oh yeah,
Team USA. You see that picture? It's like he did a thing, and like it turns out I'm in debt from that trip or something, but it's like outwardly, it was like, all right, I see what you're doing now. I don't really get how it works, but I'm glad that it's work. You know, you don't ask me for money. So it's like, obviously you're feeding yourself somehow. It's like, all right. So we're getting somewhere, but the dream to offer it all in there. And then ultimately to monetize some of this stuff. Like I do camps, you know, the next one is Project Mayhem, which is a Fight Club reference. So like, you know, don't ask questions, which is on brand. You know, trust Mr. Durbin, Mr. Kunkel in this case, you know, trust me, just trust me, you know, don't ask questions, trust me. Yeah, exactly. So like ethical cult, you know, ethical cult. And you just show up there, you know, it's May 10th to the 17th. If you've seen other camps that we've done, it'll be holotropic breath work where you're like tripping balls and getting tetany and it's all through your breath. Obviously the house is stocked with everything you could ask for. And that goes for fungus of many different kinds, you know, dozens of kinds, you know, including like cordyceps and like the ultimate mushroom complex is one of them that we use by Fresh Cap. I don't know if you guys have played with them.
Never.
It's just, it used to be Thrive 6 and it's a 6 blend mix of mushrooms. It's like cordyceps reishi, lion's mane, turkey tail, a bunch of stuff that you've heard of and that you just whatever, and you just throw it into a cup of coffee. It's like, that's dialed. And so being able to share all this stuff in real time and being able to, you know, I do consults, but I don't want to do coaching. Like I don't want to wipe your nose and hold your hand. I'm okay giving you advice, but I would rather just do this. And then in a perfect world, just show up on my porch. Like I will take you through days of my life and we can just do the thing together. Right. And you can just see it in real time, and then you can try out all these sponsor things. You can try out sleep sups, or you can try out the sauna or the red mill or whatever it is, and you can try all this stuff in real time and just stay with me. You know, my front room, I started getting a retainer from one of my sponsors, and so I didn't have to rent out that front room because like I was hustling, you know. And Durango's insanely expensive, so rentals are boom, it's the thing you want. And the second I started getting that retainer, I took the first month and took half of it to deck out that room, put in new flooring, gave it a nice paint job, put in a nice fixture on there, and put 2 triple bunk beds in there and an ottoman. So the ottoman pulls out into a 7th bed. So like I could sleep 7 people. I've never filled it. So I offer these camps. You have a hostel. It's a proper hostel. There's actually 2 of the beds are up on Airbnb when we don't have camps in there, because then, you know, ski bumps and stuff can come through for $27 a night in a town where you can't get in for 90, even in a gross motel. And they can just stay with me, and, you know, that way the lights stay on and all of us athletes can just keep doing our thing. And so that lets me not turn anybody down. And so the next one's Project Mayhem, and there's constantly like different hazing ideas about like, we'll just have them stand on the porch and we'll spew profanities at them until they eat a pound of raw liver, and then they can walk in the front door. Cause like, you know, I had a mentor say, yeah, do liver. And this was like 2010. Yeah. And then like the whole like rise and fall of Liver King stuff. I'm like, I never thought to monetize that. It's like, I just thought it was weird. You know, I just thought like, I'm just going to eat liver. Like maybe I'll talk about it once or twice. And like, I've gone viral once or twice softly, like in Facebook era of just like eating lobes of raw liver just before a race or something. Never put it together. I guess I'm not that entrepreneurial or something. But yeah, so, you know, Project Mayhem will have all that stuff, and people can come in and train with me and the other super serious athletes that are at the house and that are training full time there, and just kind of see it for themselves and do it all. And like I said, it's something that drew me to Mark and this whole super training thing of taking what was just your crazy passion that probably didn't make a lot of sense to pretty much anybody, although strength might be an easier sell inherently, maybe.
I don't know.
And you're like, well, I want to get strong. It's like, that makes sense, instead of me like, I want to get weird. It's like, all right. But yeah, then having a gym that's free and that has your own branded stuff in it, and doing a podcast like this, it's like, this is something that for maybe the first time in my life, I feel like I could emulate. You know, I feel like this is something that I've known that this will lead into something at some point. I've compared it to like connecting the dots. You know, it's like I'm at dot number 40 some, and I know dot number 43 or something is the next dot to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect these dots. I don't know what the finished picture is going to look like, you know, and I'm okay with that. I like what I'm doing. I'm having a blast connecting dot 42 to 43. There's nothing profound about this. There's no divine intervention here. I know without a doubt this is what I'm supposed to do. And at some point we'll monetize it. Like at some point I'll offer these camps and we'll have proper yurts and everyone will have their own space. It won't be people laying bodies over each other. And, you know, it'll be a $5,000 for the week, for the environment, to have elite level coaching and all the amenities and just deck it the fuck out. But until then, I'm just going to keep offering them for donation based. You know, one person with a big boy job comes there and, you know, gives you $500 or $1,000. And, you know, the reality is they couldn't afford a hotel in that town for $1,000 for the 8 days or whatever it is. So they're making out, I'm making out. And then the whole house gets to do like breath work and trigger point and all the things that we do. And then, you know, I can keep my electricity on.
Power Project family, quality sleep can make everything with your health and fitness easier, which is why we've partnered with Hostage Tape. Now, we've been talking about mouth tape for years and nasal breathing for years. But one of the problems that we've had with tape is we all like to rock facial hair, and a lot of the mouth tapes we would use would fall off of our face at night. Hostage Tape doesn't fall off your face if you have a beard or if you're not a man and you don't. I'm joking. You don't need a beard, right? But either way, Hostage Tape makes sense. It'll stick to your face when you're asleep. You'll have better quality sleep because you're breathing through your nose all night long. It is a no-brainer. And if you head to hostagetape.com/powerproject, you'll be able to get the Power Project annual deal, which is a year's supply of Hostage Tape for 55 cents a day. You'll be saving $150 on the typical yearly deal. You're going to get 2 free tins and a blindfold. It's a no-brainer. So head there right now and get yourself some Hostage Tape. Links in the description along with the podcast show notes. Shut your fucking mouth when you sleep. Enjoy the show.
What happened in the race that you just did?
It's kind of like proof that I don't have talent. I mean, it was a half marathon, and I took off I was, like I said, I was perfectly in shape. You know, we're into early March now, and I was perfectly in shape mid-January. You know, I was in the best marathon shape of my life conclusively. And I dropped down to the half marathon in Houston and just ran a smooth kind of, you know, started a little slower, got a little faster at the end. Nice, smooth, like marathon effort, half marathon. And that's what let me know that I was in, you know, no slower than 2:24-ish shape for the marathon on the day. So it's like, all right, this worked. You know, I can do this. And I've just been kind of like hanging on to fitness since then. I haven't had a proper, you know, deload and full block and like 6 weeks of training at sustained volume like I do for you know, A races. And so I've just kind of been tacking on races at the end, and just kind of having fun, stacking some wins and running some faster times because my body is faster than it's ever been. It's just a little rickety. And so I've been, you know, I dropped down to Phoenix and ran a marathon and did the first 7 miles at Olympic trials pace and then just jogged it in or like death marched it in by the end. No fluid, no calories, just like proper good training stimulus. And then came out the next weekend, did a 10K at 7:30, did a 5K at 9, did a 10K trail race the next morning at like 9, and just like stacked all these races. And it's like, it's been a big existential thing because, okay, I'm running fast. You know, I'm doing 5:20 average or whatever it is. It's not as fast as I would like, but it's fast. It, you know, it feels fast. It looks fast. And I'm winning all these races. Like, obviously, that's fast enough to be crushing a given race on a given weekend. It's not going to win the Boston Marathon, but it's like you'll win everything outside of like the top tier stuff running paces like that. And it's like, well, what am I going for? What am I doing? It's like, I want this transcendental thing. I want this craziness. I'm chasing the dragon here. I'm not chasing something. I'm not chasing a win. And I've just been kind of racing and internalizing this and feeling out my body. And the lower leg didn't seem to respond to time off. So I'm kind of teetering on like, do I train? Do I not train? And so kind of trying different days out there of like, well, maybe I'll just race and it'll just pop it back into place or something. Cause that's happened to me plenty of times where like I have a little issue going into an ultra and then the systemic inflammation that you get of everything is like hot and you go to sleep and you feel like you have the flu or something because your legs are so batterized and battered and then that like systemic inflammation kind of hits the reset button and fixes it. So I was kind of hopeful maybe that would happen since I can train pain-free 1 or 2 days a week. And it didn't seem to have happened. So now it's 2 weeks of just pulling and pushing sleds. And then that last half marathon was just I figured, man, let's just get like trials pace for a half marathon. That would give me a lot of confidence. And if I can do that under sub-optimal conditions, then I'll know that it's in the bag. So went out 5:11 through the first mile with a 180-degree turn and like whatever, getting your placement in there, 5:14 for the second mile, And then it was already like slowed down until it was just a death march at the end. And I'm like, all right. And we had a blasting headwind too. So, the speed is there. The comfort is getting there. That's what I was talking about with like just the coordination of running that fast. And the shock factor of like, this is so fast is kind of like wearing off in a good way. And so I'm ready to I'm going to push and pull the sled around for a couple weeks. Hopefully that'll correct this. It's been awesome hanging out here because it seems like the perfect time to be here. There's like all kinds of the right experts in there to play around with and engage with and kind of figure out what's going on here. And so, yeah, I mean, it was a beautiful blow up for sure. And there's a certain value in doing that. I mean, there's a certain.
Have you had to stop in certain races before?
Yeah, I've dropped out of races plenty of times.
What about in training? Have you had to stop in training or you're, I don't know, 8 miles in, 10 miles in? Do you ever have to stop or call an audible and do something totally different because you're just fucked for the day?
Yeah, for sure. I'm so gentle with myself with a lot of this that I don't know that it even registers as much to like lock in like, oh yeah, I quit that workout or whatever. But especially marathon training, there's times where you're just not going to have it. I mean, training for an ultra or training to finish a marathon, you should be able to finish every single session on the day of the session. And if you can't, then your sessions are too hard, I think, for at least a beginner, right? Whereas training to get fast, I had sessions where it's, 5 by 1,000 meters or 7 by 1,000 meters. So those are about 3 minutes of pretty brisk running. And there's days where you just don't have that. Or in Durango, there's days where there's ice and you just, that's just that. And so I do a really, really good job of having some gentleness with myself and just saying, well, today wasn't the day. We got some of the stimulus in there, or obviously it was enough for the day, and then making the call of like, do I make up this workout? Do I do it in 3 days? Do I do it in 7 days? When do I tack it on to next week's workout? How do I figure this out? And kind of just calling stuff on the fly. But I think that intuition is informed from a lot of years of just like being a super nerd about it. I don't like all that data. I don't like crunching all these numbers. I don't enjoy all that. Where a lot of endurance athletes like that. They're like kind of engineered pencil pushing types. They like all that. They like spreadsheets and stuff. I hate that shit. Like I do it because then it liberates me to just get weird on race day. And that's really what I like. When I won the 100K national champs, I had more than 5 hours where I had zero internal dialogue. I mean, literally zero. I'd hit a mile split and it would be 6:09 and I would have a visceral response of like, yeah, that's right. And I would just keep going. I mean, I had 0 words for more than 5 hours. I mean, I saw my shadow running and like did little form checks and like the activation and everything, but not once did I say, okay, stay relaxed. Okay, you're going to get this. Okay, you're going to win this race or this person's doing this. Right? None of that. Like literally no management, no hours, no laps. I had no idea how many laps. It was 20 laps. I had no idea how many laps I was in by like 3 or 4 laps in. And I didn't know until lap 18 or something. I mean, I had nothing. And that's kind of like, that's the white whale at this point. It's like how long can I do that? Can I do a 24 hour where I have no thoughts, where I'm just, I get a crew member to just mix up the same bottle for me and manage that and say, hand me this every hour. Don't ask me if I want anything. I'm never going to say yes. I mean, there's some runners where they put the pressure on your crew because it's like, I've crewed buddies where, do you want potatoes? Do you want this? Do you want chips? Do you want Skittles? Do you want whatever you want coming into an aid station? And he says he doesn't want anything, and then the 7th thing you suggest, he says, oh yeah, potato chips. That sounds great. And you're like, now I'm on the hook to suggest everything that I can possibly ask for you so that you get extra calories, so you feel good in 10 miles or 20 miles or 50 miles. And it's like, man, the pressure. I've never said yes, not once. It's like if I'm dropping out of a race, I quit hours ago. Like by the time that you find out, I'm done, right? Yeah. Whereas some people will get into an aid station, they're like, I'm thinking about dropping. And I'm like, why are you even saying that? Like, just get to the next aid station, then you can drop. Don't tell me you're thinking about it. And I don't know. I'm losing myself here. Where do we even start with that?
What do you got over there, Andrew?
This might sound weird, but like, are you hungry? Like, I'm just thinking, like trying to not gain weight, but still work out, but also still not gain weight. Like, just like perpetually, like, do you constantly think about food, or because again, this is interesting.
I mean, the weight thing is a recent thing for me. Like, I've kind of just let my body. He's losing it over there, man.
Just the way you asked that question. I don't know, man. Are you hungry?
I was like, right now, am I looking skinny? I mean,
because I'm just thinking, like, powerlifters listening and stuff, they're just like, man, I'm kind of sick of eating because I have to keep putting down calories, and then,
dude,
you know what I mean? So that's why I'm like, what's that like?
Huge props to force feeding. Force feeding is way harder than not eating. Man, I feel like the three of you can appreciate that. Eating when you're not hungry is so much. I mean, you do it once, whatever, but it's like day in, day out. Your hunger resets. I mean, this whole like intentionally trying to lose weight is super new for me. I've let my body do its thing for most of my running career. I just let it do its thing. It's just been one more tool that, like, I'll track this occasionally, but when I look at, like a foot pod, like power wattage, like cyclists use, 300 watts, that's my FTP or whatever. I can do X number of watts of output. And we're in the era now where you can do running power meters and they're pretty accurate. And so I know I can only change so many variables. You can only increase these things so much. And I found a lot of things that work, but there's no more low-hanging fruit for me. And I look at the math of how fast I can run and all that, and it comes down to weight. But I do eat between 1 and 9 p.m. I'm never giving up. I don't think that meal before bed. I'm not going to bed hungry. I hate that, man. That's not going to happen. But I'm totally fine going into the morning session and taking pre-workout instead of breakfast and keeping it in there. I just won't have calories until 1. But I don't think so. I mean, I don't think I'm more or less hungry when I'm intentionally trying to lose weight, because the foods that I'm eating are so nutritionally dense. Like, I'm known for cracking open cans of sardines, and like I call it sardine supreme, which is one of the things that I advocate for. That's very non-carnivore here, is to have 30 to 40 plants a day, and really, if you can outshoot that, all the better. And I think that's a cool way to engage with the food that you're eating, because there's a little bit of evidence that, like, triage theory. You guys ever heard of that? That's like the idea. I forget. Rhonda Patrick had some dude on there, some awesome nerd on there talking about triage theory. And that's the idea that what we think a nutrient does, it only does if you're deficient in that nutrient. And I'm kind of messing up his explanation, I'm sure. So, like, vitamin C has this certain function, but if you have enough vitamin E, it'll put that vitamin C towards this, because vitamin E can step in for vitamin C, but it can't step in for this other use of it and put it in there. And then there's all these things like, was it zeaxanthin that's in bell peppers that, like, you do have in your eye, and that and whatever. If I'm getting these nutrients wrong, it's of no consequence, I don't think. But, like, you do have it in your eye and it does degrade. So if you're not replacing it, then you're not going to have it, and something else will have to step in for that place. But the amount that you need is very small. And so I think having a wide range of things to, like, feed different gut bacteria.
Casting a wide net, yeah.
Just to have the diversity. It's not about the volume. It could be a very small, it could be a scoop of greens, probably, to my mind, and call that. Then the question is, do you call that 30 if it has, like, whatever, a single 0.01 milligram of barley grass or something? It's like, does that count? I don't know. The jury's out, but I will count, like, black pepper or, like, a good curry. It's like that. I would count that as 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 plants, because you are exposing yourself to those things. So it could be spices just as easily for the right person.
Should just get some fucking athletic greens. Like, hear about it so much.
Dump it on top of all your food.
just fucking
sprinkle it
take
on everything.
That.
I've never actually tried it. It does have ashwagandha in it, right?
I don't know, dude. I've never had it before.
Yeah.
I just hear so many people mention athletic greens. I'm
We
just
should have
like,
brought it in here. We could have
I've
tossed
heard
it
it
and
tastes
washed
like
it right now.
shit, but, like, it must.
Did
must be
Huberman
something
say
decent.
it?
But Huberman said, yeah, he drinks his athletic greens
All right,
also.
that's all we need to know then.
What else do you eat? Sardines.
So
And
yeah,
greens?
the sardine supreme. That's an awesome way. I'll do nuts and nutritional yeast and, like, a bunch of seasonings, and there might be, like, pumpkin seeds, and, like, nutritional yeast is, like, you played with it. Are you familiar? Nooch? You guys familiar with Nooch? You on that life?
It's been around forever.
Yeah, it's like I like the first time I heard about it was from vegans, and I'm like, if I didn't have vegan friends, I wouldn't know what nutritional yeast was. Like, real talk. It's like, why would
Brewer's
I?
yeast and all that stuff.
Yeah, but it's got a good range of B vitamins in there. It's, like, cheesy and doughy and good. And I'll take nutritional yeast and all this other stuff, and I'll throw it on top of sardines and kind of, like, chop them all up into little bits. And then they're, like, kind of like powdered with this stuff. It's kind of like a breading. And
Okay,
I can
I
eat
can
them.
see
I
where
can
you're
eat them
going
like
with this
that,
now.
or I can
Yeah.
do sun-dried tomatoes in there, or I can take that and I'll make like a little sushirito with nori and wrap it up in there. And yeah, sardine supreme
Sardine sushirito.
sardine supreme, man. That's how you do it, because that's whatever it is, 15 plants or so, plus just it's a whole animal. I mean, I get the skin on, bones in, proper sardines, and
sardines,
that's a superfood. I mean, when I was going through an upper level nutrition class through college, I was like, man, maybe I should supplement with that. Maybe I should supplement. It was like first year med student phenomenon where you think every health problem that you hear about, you think you have. You're like, I have that. And I was like going through all these nutrition things, and I was like, maybe I'd benefit from that. Maybe I should get more vitamin A. Maybe I should get more omega-3s. Maybe I should. And when I was looking into foods, the top foods that have it, sardines were always on that list. So I was like, let's start eating sardines every day and just see what happens. And started racing better than I ever have. And so now it's just, when I'm training heavy, it's, 20 cans of sardines, 20 days of training, let's go. And that's a big base for me right there.
Yeah.
And then I'll do half a pound of raw liver a week. I'll do a lot of eggs, especially when I'm manipulating body weight. Red meat actually ends up getting squeezed out just for the sake of eggs, because I can do a lot of eggs for the same number of calories.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll even toss the whites. Like I'll feed the whites to my dog, and I'll just do egg yolks, like confit eggs, where you like shred up a nice tuber, half of a sweet potato, or like a big yam if I'm training real heavy, in the cast iron with some tallow or duck fat. Duck fat's ideal, and just takes so long to just kind of flip those little patties of it and get it all into kind of a hash, and throw some egg yolks on top, pop them right once they're on the plate, and get the egg yolk all over it. Dialed little cinnamon, tons of salt. So yeah, it's a lot of animal products for my proper nutrition, and then I view plants as kind of like a supplement.
Cool.
Got it.
Take us on out of here, Andrew.
Alrighty, thank you everybody for checking out today's episode. Please drop those comments down below. Let us know what you guys think about today's podcast. Hit that like button and subscribe if you guys are not subscribed already. Follow the podcast at MB Power Project all over the place. My Instagram is at I am Andrew Z. Nsima, where you at?
Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube, and Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. Anthony, where can people find you and everything you do?
Yeah, people can find me Instagram primarily at Anthony Kunkel, and that's phonetic. We'll put it in the show notes. But like obviously, you can find me at 535 County Road 204. I mean, you can show up at my house, man. You can't miss the prayer flags on the porch. So yeah, I would say, if I can have a call to action here for a second, I would say show up to Project Mayhem. That's the May 10th to the 17th. And yeah, just don't ask questions, show up, we'll treat you right. If you're serious about your craft, whatever it is. I've had artists, I've had photographers, I've had all kinds of people show up and just kind of dive into it and find your own, monk mode, as we call it, of just doing the same thing every day. And figure out what's ideal around a bunch of people that think that you're totally reasonable for giving up your entire life to chase this thing. So yeah, show up at my house.
I'm at Mark Smelly Bell. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.